Hi everyone and welcome back to a brand new video.
Hello.
So I completely forgot about this. Martyn reminded me, but recently we put out a Q&A on Instagram asking if you had any questions about when we used to work on board cruise ships.
Yeah, so just to go back, that's how we first met.
And actually this year will be our 10-year anniversary,
Yes.
which is crazy.
It's mad. I don't know where the time's gone.
Yeah.
We even this morning on Instagram had a thing that said 7 years ago, and it was our first trip to Disneyland Paris. So where's the time gone?
So we met working on board cruise ships. So we both left in 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just before everything kicked off.
Yeah, so it has been a while. So obviously take everything we say with a pinch of salt. This is just our experience of what it was like when we worked on board. Probably a lot has changed since.
I mean, I started 2000 and I always get this wrong. I think it was 2013. So I think I was 23 when I started. And then, 2019 is when I finished. And then you started 2015.
15, yeah. So it has been a while. So probably some of what we say might be quite dated. But I do watch a lot of like cruise vloggers and things, and it still seems pretty much the same. Like some of the stuff they do, I'm like, that's exactly what we did.
And some of the rules and things.
So you asked us some really good questions. So we're going to hopefully get through most of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, we also dug out this.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that we had this.
So we didn't start vlogging on the channel until you did a cruise contract on your own and I visited.
Well, we'd started vlogging before then.
Yes.
But then that was the first time that we vlogged
A
cruise ship life, yeah.
And then we did vlog our last contract. So all those vlogs are on the channel. But for our very first cruise contract, so this was 2015 to 16, we weren't vlogging at the time, but I did sort of make a little scrapbook. So it sort of had photos.
It's a big one.
Yeah. So it had like photos. I'm so glad I did this in the end.
Oh, happy birthday. That's me there at my desk.
And then it also had, here we are. So here's like an example. We tried to get postcards from like places that we visited. And I think I wrote on the back of a few of them. I didn't keep it up very well.
Didn't I try? But
Here you go, it's you, yeah. So as you can see, this is when we visited Barcelona, and then you sort of wrote on the back.
Myself and Helena jumped into a taxi. Helena said zoo, so of course we were taken to the sea.
But yeah, we do have like a few memories in here, which hopefully will jog our memory when we look back.
Also, we kept some of our badges.
Yeah. So that brings us to our first question, which was what cruise line did you work for and when? So we have Martyn's old badges here.
Yeah.
They've gone like really yellow.
They have. One of them is actually still in pretty good condition. This one. Entertainment team. So that must have been when I was entertainment host. Entertainment team. Entertainment host again. Assistant cruise director. Gone up in the world. And then I don't have any of my cruise director badges.
No.
Which is strange. But when I first started, so I started working on I only worked on two ships. The Thompson Dream. And then the Discovery.
Yes, which is exactly the same as me.
But it was called the Morella. It was Morella
Changed.
Discovery?
Yeah, Morella Discovery. But the first ship we both worked on together was the Thompson Dream. But Martyn had already worked a few contracts before then.
Yeah, I had, yeah.
But the first one we worked on together was the Thompson Dream, and I was in the show team, and you were cruise director.
Sort of.
Yeah.
They were going through a strange... they were trialling something different where... So normally the cruise director was like the person that was in charge of the entertainment team, and they decided to try something new where I would be the face but relieved of a lot of the managerial stuff. So that was something that we tried out for a contract. So the company went Thompson, then it went Tui, then it went Morella, didn't it?
So now it's the Morella.
So it was Morella Discovery.
And it's that to this day. So then we worked on the Morella Discovery. Martyn went on first to do an Asia contract.
Yeah, and then at that time, I got to do the cruise director position as how it's supposed to be, where I was like actually in charge.
And then I joined when it started to go around Europe, and then I was in the show team again. So I was a singer dancer for both contracts. So I did both.
You did a lot.
It did a lot. Loved it. It was really, really great to sort of perform in so many different shows. We did we did like 10 shows, I think, in total, both contracts. So I probably did over 20 different shows over my time.
Cabarets,
Deck parties. We were busy, which we'll come on to on some of the other questions. But yeah, that is our little sort of like history of what ships. So yeah, we have only worked for one cruise company and 2 different ships.
Yeah. And the way it worked was like the entertainment was outsourced from a different company. So we were sort of under the umbrella of a separate company working for Thompson or Morella.
Yeah. And that company has actually changed now. So when you go on Morella ships now, they have a different entertainment company.
Yeah.
So that leads us on to question number 2. What did an average day on the ship look like for you?
That's tricky because I had 3 different positions.
Yeah.
So
probably cruise director, maybe.
Yeah. Well, as I got more up the ladder, I sort of got less time off the ship, I would say. So like an entertainment team member, that was great for really being able to explore things because you'd have set daytime activities and you'd like rotate with other people within the team. So that would allow you time to get off. As I got up the ladder and as I became cruise director, so average day was, I would get up, it depended what was happening in the morning because you would have things like cabin inspection that I, as cruise director, would have to take part in. So that might start quite early. I would normally be up around 7, 8. And then go and grab. I got a bit addicted to coffee during my time as cruise director.
Have to there was survive
the place called the Coffee Pot on board, so I would always go up there and get a vanilla latte, and then I think I visited there about 2-3 times a day. I think there's a question later on about was it easy to like save money and stuff. It was if you didn't keep buying drinks, and then I would have admin to do. I would overlook something called the cruise news, which was a bit like if you've been on P&O Horizon, which is the newsletter that would tell you what was going to be happening during the day. So you'd have to look over that each day for the next day with the assistant cruise director. Might have some management meetings where you'd have to meet up with the different departments and talk about sort of what was happening there. I'd have to do, so if we're talking about a day at sea, I would have to do announcements during the day. So I'd go up to either where the captain was, so on the bridge, and I would do an announcement from there at like midday, and then another one later on the day for the evening. I would do like a rundown of all the activities. I would host different events, so I'd be up on the pool deck hosting some games like categories and stuff like that. Oh, there was the afternoon play, so I'd introduce that. There was a lot of running around.
I was about to say, most of your day was just darting from one thing to the other.
Yeah, on a sea day, it definitely was like that.
And then also talking to guests as well.
Talking to guests, socialising was one of the big factors. And then, the evening entertainment was again socialising, but also I would be around for the main show in the theatre, so I would introduce that and then also take that show off, so come on at the end and sort of say what was happening and introduce the show team and stuff like that. And then I might be hosting one of the game shows or the trivias, so I was just constantly
you didn't really stop until gone midnight.
Midnight
days.
1 o'clock. They were long days, and then as you were the cruise director, inevitably there was always something that sort of had to keep an eye on or handle.
And then for the show team, again, this differs. So when you first go on board, you're installing all of the shows. So for that's sort of, it's about like a month, I would say. You can't really get off very much at all because your day is basically rehearsing throughout the day. They normally have the other show team doing the shows, but you'll be rehearsing throughout the day, dress runs, tech runs, and we had like 10 shows to rehearse and put on. And so for about a month, it was just that, day in, day out. And then we'd start doing the shows in the evening, but still rehearsing during the day, and very, very, very busy when you first get on. Then as you sort of get into the contract, it does start to ease up a little bit. So for an average day, which wasn't a sea day, I was normally off for the day until my rehearsals, which tended to be about 4 or 5, I think. Sometimes earlier if we were having to like restage anything, or if someone was off and we had to like respace it, we'd have to come in earlier. But normally we would get the majority of the day, so we could go out, explore the different ports, which was really, really great. And then we'd come back on, from memory, I think it was about 4 or 5, do rehearsal, and then we'd normally go and then have time to eat, and then we would do 2 shows in the evening. Can't remember those times now.
Oh.
They were quite late. I think it was like 8 and 10. They were quite sort of late showings.
Was it 7:30?
Maybe.
Something like that?
I think the last one was around 10 o'clock. And then sometimes we would have a cabaret or some sort of party to go to afterwards. So that sometimes wouldn't end till about midnight. So yeah, our evenings, like afternoon to evenings, were busy, busy, busy. But sometimes we did get the opportunity to go off and explore during the day. And then if it was a sea day, it was pretty much the same evening, but then we had duties during the day. So you'd normally do 1 or 2 kind of duties, which could range from library, where you had to just like sit in the library,
sign people in and out.
Yeah, that was quite a weird one. You could do, I actually helped, my friend Tom did like a sign language class, and I helped out with that. We also like did dance classes, choir.
Did you help me out with line dancing? At some point?
Like, yeah, you could kind of go to them and say like, these are my skills, would you like them to be used? And they'd try and sort of use something that you're good at. But yeah, that was, sea days were normally quite busy days. And also some days you had to do a drill in the morning. That was once every week. So that would also eat up your morning. And it would always be on a day where like you really wanted to get out to the port. It would always be like brilliant sunshine. You're in somewhere like amazing. And they'd be like, it's drill day. And you'd be like, no. Because that could sometimes take up to like 2 hours.
Yeah. How did you both end up getting cruise ship jobs?
Oh, this one's quite an interesting story for me.
It is for you. I fell into it, really. I graduated from Newcastle College with my BA in acting, and then I was just applying for things left, right and centre, just trying to get some sort of professional gig. That sort of wasn't happening. I was living in Newcastle, so it was very hard to get to any auditions. I had to like travel on the megabus overnight and stuff like that. And then I don't know where I saw it, maybe it was on the stage or something. So an advert for getting a position on a cruise ship. I applied, and then I had no idea what it entailed really. I was told to prep for the audition a game show. So that sort of appealed to me because I've always loved the presenting side of things. And so I went along, and I can't remember I always get confused as to whether it was Manchester or Liverpool. I feel like it might have been Manchester. And there was just a whole host of people there, and we did like some bonding activities, and then we had to do the game shows. So we each presented our game show. But the big thing, I think the thing that got me the gig in the end was there was another person there who I really connected with right off the bat, and we had really good chemistry. And then me and him kept, because people were hosting their game shows, but they needed volunteers to take part as the contestants. And me and him were constantly like saying, yeah, we'll be part of it. So
you got to see
throughout
more.
the day, they saw not only us do our own presenting stuff, but they also saw us interacting with everybody. And I think that's what got us it in the end, because then we both got the job. So it was me and him, and then we got the job on the same ship. So they sort of hired us as a bit of a double act, I think.
And deck.
Yeah, we had that comparison for quite a while when we first got on board. But yeah, I think that was it. I don't know if we had to do anything else. I can't remember if we had to do like singing or something, but the game show portion is what I remember. And I did mine about movies. I can't remember how it went, but I think I've got the cue card somewhere still.
So I studied musical theatre, and after leaving college for about maybe like a year and a half, I was just auditioning. I had my sights set on like the West End UK tours, and I did get to like the finals for quite a few of them. So I was feeling like a little bit disheartened, and I had cruise ships in the back of my mind, but at the time, I think when you left college, I was sort of like, no, I just want to be on the West End. I just want to sort of do UK tours. And then after a while, I was like, I really just want to perform. Like, I'm missing it so much. And I was like, let's give cruise ships a go. Like, let's go for it. Sort of the travel aspect of it as well, like, really appealed to me. So I started auditioning for cruise ships, and I managed to get one, I think, quite fast. I can't remember how long I was auditioning for now. And it was actually with Costa Cruises, and it was their lead singer. And so I got that. I travelled to Italy for, maybe it was like maybe like 1 or 2 months we were rehearsing in Italy. And we learned all of the shows. I had to learn different shows in like Italian, French, Spanish,
Wow.
English. It was hard. And it was only me and one other guy as the singers, and then everyone else was just dancers. So I did feel very sort of isolated and on my own as well. The day we were meant to embark the ship, we literally had our suitcases, everything ready to go. And the head of Costa appeared, and we thought, this is strange. Like, does she normally come in? Or I don't know if it was the head of Costa, but it was the head of the entertainment department or something. And we thought, does she normally come and say like, oh,
Good
well
luck,
done? Yeah, I was like, maybe this is what she does. But no, we had a meeting where they told us that the ship we were meant to be on had been sold literally 24 hours before we were meant to embark. And it was a brand new ship. It actually made the newspapers because a lot of people, like guests, passengers that were about to get on, were already like ready to board the ship and were told that day or 24 hours before. So yeah, she was like, we don't have a ship for you. All of our other ships are all fully cast. We don't have anything. You're going to have to fly home. And that, I just remember how devastating that was. Like all the work we'd put in at the time. And I had already like left my flat that I was renting for 9 months. I'd already like planned out the 9 months. It just felt like, what? Like it was completely like crazy. We also had to wait a couple of days because they couldn't get flights that day. So we were just stuck in this little town in Italy. We came back. I actually went skiing that Christmas with my family. And then in January, I was like, right, let's start auditioning. They had us on the books, but I knew it was going to be quite a while until another contract came up for Costa. So I thought, let's audition for other ships. So I auditioned for, sorry, it's a very long story. I auditioned for Thompson, which it was at the time. And I got down to the final, and then I was waiting to hear. And then I got sent an email saying, how quick can you start? And I thought, well, that's quite a good sign. And I actually took the place of someone who'd left for the Thompson Dream, which was the ship that Mom was going to be on. But the weird thing is, I actually, from that audition, I was meant to be on a different ship. I was meant to be on a Fred Olsen ship. And then it was only because a space opened up on the Thompson Dream that I got transferred over to it and had to start straight away. So whilst I was in rehearsals for the Thompson Dream, this is really weird. That Fred Olsen ship, also they lost the contract for that Fred Olsen ship. So it would have happened to me twice had I not been transferred over to the Thompson Dream. So definitely fate played a little bit there.
Well, that's where your favourite words, serendipity.
And of course, Martyn was on that ship. So had I been on either of those other 2 ships, we never would have met.
That's mad, that, isn't it?
So it is a crazy, crazy story. And like whenever I think about it, I'm like, that it was a real sort of fate moment.
How many hours a day did you work?
Well, yours was...
I can't even answer that.
It was 24 hours, really, because you could be called at any moment, even like the middle of the night. You're constantly on shift in a way.
Yeah. There was a rule where I think, was it you had to get 6 hours rest?
It was something very small.
I think. But yeah, I could be like if there was an emergency or something, or the helicopter evacuation or something like that, which did happen. I'd get phone calls or paged and stuff.
Yeah, and also the thing is, it's like when you're on break around the ship, you have to still be wearing your name badge. So even if you're not working, but you're just sitting in the coffee shop, or you're eating in one of the guest areas. Sorry, just had to adjust the lights. But yeah, so it's really hard to put like an actual number to the amount of hours. I mean, as cruise director, I would say you were working from 7, 8 in the morning until 1, 2 at night.
Yeah.
And then the only times you really stopped was to eat in the crew
and like
mess.
get changed. Yeah.
As show team, you did have a little bit more time off the ship, and that was when you really felt like you were not working because you weren't on the ship.
Well, actually, there's a question here, which is how many days off a week did you get?
Okay, so as show team, we got 1 day off.
But this was only in your last contract, wasn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes that day off, sometimes you'd have to do a cabaret, a solo cab. But you did get 1 day off of doing the evening shows. So they'd have like a comedian, or they'd have like someone else come in and do the shows that evening. But yeah, apart from that, 6 days a week, we were doing shows every single evening. And also we had to do stuff like embarkation day. So that was every other week. And that was pretty much a whole shift. It was really long. You had to embark everybody onto the ship.
In terms of the cruise director role, there were no days off.
No, none. It's a lot of work.
There was, I was very fortunate that there was still some time. I did manage to get off the ship, and there was an assistant cruise director. Like, we sort of tried to find time where they could get off, and then when I could get off. So we did, I managed to get to, during the Asia itinerary, I managed to get off to Universal Singapore quite a lot, and there was a water park and stuff like that. So, there was still great sort of travel elements to the role. But there was a lot of hours still working.
I also want to say that the cruise company we worked for, I think we worked a lot compared to like what I've heard about other cruise companies. I've heard of ones where you only do like 1 or 2 shows a week, and they get a lot more time off. So I will say it does really differ from cruise company to cruise company. So if you are thinking about sort of like working on board, maybe try and find out that information.
I think there's a lot of like regulations and things that maybe changed during, my first contract when I was entertainment host, I worked 14 months with a 3-week break.
Yeah.
In the middle. I don't think that was allowed, really.
No,
I think they asked me, and I said, oh no, I can do it.
Also, I want to say that our department, even though we were working sort of crazy hours, some of the other departments as well, like housekeeping, food and like beverage, I don't know if that's what it's called, like catering.
Food and beverage.
That they worked day and night.
So hard.
And they also don't have the privileges that we had as entertainment. We were allowed to eat in passenger area. We were allowed to sort of be around sort of the passengers and stuff like that. They were working, or they were in their cabin, or in the crew mess. And it's a really, really hard job. Really, really hard job. And some of them, I don't know how they did it.
Oh, they were amazing. They were so friendly as well. Yeah. Hats off to them, everyone who works on board.
Yeah.
It's such a, it might look like everything's being run fine, but everyone's working so hard.
So hard.
There's lots going on behind the scenes. Oh, it's juicy. What was the pay like? Accommodation and food included. I would say that if you are wise about your spending, the only real expenses that you can come up against on the ship for us were going to the crew bar or buying things in the shop.
Buying things in the passenger shop.
Yeah, M&Ms.
Yeah, Pringles, stuff like that. But you really can save a lot of money if you are clever about it, because you're not paying accommodation, you're not paying for food.
I think the only food that we paid for, so sometimes we'd go to a specialty restaurant where sometimes you would pay, but you'd get it at a discount.
You'd get it quite reasonable still. I actually struggled with food a lot in both the crew mess and even the passenger buffet after a while. I think the food is different on board, and it really did upset my stomach. And I when I left, it took me a long time to get back to sort of being healthy. I lost quite a lot of weight as well on the first contract by the end, and also on the second one by the end. Just because I was really, really struggling to eat. It made me really unwell. So yeah, I would say that was probably one of my major struggles of working on board a cruise ship. And I don't know if it's something they put in the food or whether it's just different, isn't it, to eating at home?
Yeah.
So, and especially the crew mess, I really struggled to eat there. There wasn't much that I could eat or wanted to eat. Had I not had the privilege of being able to eat in the passenger buffet, I would have really, really struggled. I don't know what I would have done. If you sort of, do have any sort of dietary requirements or things like that, definitely sort of have a think about that before you go working on board, and maybe try and find out where you can eat and what you can eat and stuff like that. Because I would say that was one of my biggest struggles.
Yeah.
I will say as well that on our second contract especially, we did try and save money, and that was a massive bulk of our deposit for a house.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So if you are saving for something big, like a house deposit or something like that, the cruise contracts are a really good way of getting and saving money quite quickly.
Yeah.
There is a question here about food, which I've kind of answered already, but what I will say is that they are very strict about what you can bring on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So that is also something which I kind of struggled with a little bit. So you have to be quite clever with what you buy to bring back on board. You can't bring on... the list is sort of endless about what you can't bring back on.
I can't remember what,
You can basically bring on a lot of dry food.
Yeah, that's
but
what I was thinking,
you can't really bring on like any sort of fresh food, any sort of dairy products. Anything that basically could carry, infection or anything like that, they really don't want. So I tended to just bring loads of like dry food. Like people will go out and just buy loads and loads of crisps and things
snacks
like that,
mainly,
snacks to have in the cabin. But that is really nice to have those sort of home comforts in the cabin. So some days we'd go out and our whole day would pretty much just be going to like the grocery store.
Well, yeah, one of our home ports was Parma. And they
Yeah.
had a big, massive supermarket that you'd find all the crew in.
Yeah, so you just go and you'd stock up and bring that back to your cabin. Do you think it's a good way to start off professionally performing?
Oh.
Yeah, I think so, because you do so many different sort of genres of shows. I know it does differ from cruise ship to cruise ship, but we were doing pop shows, rock shows, musical theatre shows.
Yeah.
So like you gain so much experience and confidence as well, like doing your own cabarets, learning stuff quickly and then having to like go out and perform it.
Yeah, it gave you a lot of different experiences, didn't it?
A lot. The only thing I will say is that it's definitely not for everyone. And I know people that have worked on cruise ships for, years and years and years and years, and it's their career. But I also know people that maybe will do one or two like ourselves and be like, I love the job, but I
Can't be away and stuff like
the
that.
lifestyle of it, I really struggled with by the end.
Yeah.
And then I know of some people that take 1 foot on and then they're off. No, they can't do it. The lifestyle is just not for them. So what I always say to people is give it a go, but always know that you can leave, because sometimes it feels, because your world feels so small on there, you feel trapped sometimes and you think, I can't leave. You always can. You can always leave. And I just feel like people, if they go into that sort of knowing that and remembering that, give it a go, see what happens. But always know it's not forever and you can leave. And that would always be my like advice to people when they're like starting out.
Yeah, definitely.
And if it's not for you, it's not for you. No shame in that. It's a really, really tough lifestyle. You're away from friends and family. Yeah, it's a very, very small bubble, which some people thrive in and other people, they feel trapped.
From my point of view, I mean, I don't know, because my degree was in acting, I didn't really do a lot of acting, really. There was the odd thing that I would be involved in, but I don't know if it necessarily progressed me on that route. So I don't know if you're sort of looking specifically at that sort of route, really ask what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be involved in, because I do know that there were people, they changed the name of the role from entertainment host to actor host. I think they changed it to. So then they got a lot of people who, wanted to act and came on board, but they weren't necessarily, they were still doing
They were hosting.
the large majority of the entertainment host position with very little acting. So just look into what you're going to be doing, and is there things that you're actually going to be in, productions and stuff like that. It did give me an experience. It gave me experience of, I was in shows on a big stage, which was nice.
I will say as well, when I graduated 10 years ago, no, even more, whenever I graduated, cruise ships, I will say this, were still looked down on compared, and this isn't in any way sort of saying that's right, but that was in the industry, they were. But that has definitely changed over the past 10 to 15 years.
Like the age demographic of passengers is drastically changed, I would say, as well.
And now I would say that cruise ship entertainment is really looked on, really great. And it's really hard now to get a cruise ship job if you are a performer. So I do think that landscape is changing, and cruise ship entertainment is amazing. Well, it always was. Yeah. But I feel like now people are really sort of, recognising it for how good it is, which I think is amazing, because some of the most talented performers I know work on cruise ships. Yeah. And I love that it is getting that recognition that they deserve now. This isn't a question actually, but relationships on board, they're really tough. I think especially if you're on board and your other half isn't, that must be very, very difficult with the time differences, not being able to talk, Wi-Fi issues, stuff like that. Also, a lot of people meet and they're from different countries, which then, is like an issue once they both leave, and then it's hard. We were extremely lucky that we met, and then we also wanted to leave at the same time as well.
Yeah, we shared a lot of the same goals as well. Yeah. And I knew I was going to move. So that already opened up something. So we were very fortunate, and we had the same perspectives.
Yeah, but I think they can really, really work. But then I've also witnessed some which are really, really tough. Yeah.
What are you not allowed to do on the ship as staff? So this is really testing the memory. Yeah. There were a lot of rules, and I don't know whether this is the same for other ships. Right, let's see if we can remember them. You could not carry, if you got a drink, you could not carry your drink from venue to venue. You'd get your drink and you would sit down at the table and you would finish your drink there before moving on. That was one of them.
We couldn't sit in groups of more than 4.
Yes, because then it was like a gang.
And you might think, oh, you'll get away with it. No, you did not. You got told. Even if someone was a 5th member was hovering nearby.
I was one of the, I had to, being the cruise director, it was one of those things that's I would notice it and I'd be like, oh no. So I'd have to go over.
So if you wanted to talk in more than a group of 4, you'd have to be in crew area. Yeah. There was a lot of rules on appearance. A lot of rules.
I mean, I hope that some of this has changed. I think I know some of it has. Yeah. At one point, you couldn't even have tattoos. Yeah. I believe.
We also, you weren't allowed, so on special different nights, the dress code was different. So formal night, you had, by certain time, if you were in guest area, you had to be in a full length formal gown. Yeah. Even if you were just going to there were times I had to get full face of makeup, full gown, to quickly go grab a cracker and then come back to the cabin. But I had to do it if I wanted to get through that area.
You had to wear, did you have to wear high heels?
At the time we had to wear heels, and we also had to have makeup on, which I don't know if it's changed now, but we had to wear makeup. We you weren't allowed as a woman to not wear makeup, which I think I understand being presentable and looking nice, but it is a weird rule now to look back on. It was really odd because you weren't allowed hair straighteners technically in your cabin or a hair dryer, but you weren't allowed wet hair or unstyled hair. So I used to always find that rule a little bit contradictory. So we ended up having hair, so like hair straighteners, hair curlers, because we needed them for the show.
Yeah.
But what you had to do is when you had cabin inspection, you had to hide them. So it's sort of like an unspoken rule that they knew we had to have them, but the ship's rule was that they weren't allowed. So as long as they didn't see them, they allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
There was a few things like that.
So that was the cabin inspection. So
Yeah.
you couldn't be in your cabin. Or could you? No, you could be in your cabin if you wanted, but it had to be like made up. Your bed had to be made up. Your life jackets had to be on the bed.
If you're in the cabin, they can ask you to open the drawers. So you don't want to be
right.
it. That was it.
Yeah.
If you're in the cabin, they can then ask you to open drawers and show them stuff. So you wanted to be out of the cabin because when they did the inspection, they weren't allowed to open your drawers.
Yeah.
So then you could hide stuff that was not going to pass. Also, you had like your cabin had to be like immaculate. Otherwise, you got told off. Warnings. You also weren't allowed to drink. This was also a very weird one I used to find. If you were tested and you were over the limit, instant dismissal.
Yes.
Yet they sold glasses of wine for about 40p in the crew bar. I was like, what are you doing? This is really weird.
It would also be weird when you would see officers who were obviously having a lot more.
Yeah, it was a lot of different, I'd say different rules for different people went on.
One of the ones with the activities was you had to be there 15 minutes before the start of the activity, which I actually thought was a good one. Because if people, and like we still follow that rule essentially with the old Broadway
I
boogie.
do that now. Yeah, we'll give that one's fine.
The big thing was that you remember you weren't allowed to drink, when you're doing cabarets and stuff like that, you weren't allowed to drink water from a bottle.
I think that was just another aesthetic
It had to be in a glass.
Had to be in a glass. It's just lots of like aesthetic sort of appearance things.
Yeah.
Which I understand because they wanted to like keep the sort of the glamour of cruising and the sort of.
How do I put this one? No fraternising with guests.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very strict one. Lots of dramas. A lot of dramas on the ships. Does it get scary when the seas are rough? Yeah, it does. I got scared a few times.
There was one particular time on the ship where, so we'd do the drill at the beginning of the cruise, and they would tell you what the emergency alarms were, and if you heard this alarm, then you had to react in a certain way. And then there was the alarm that would go off. There would be for crew to assemble, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was a sea day. In the middle,
we were together. We were walking somewhere.
We were just walking down a corridor, and that alarm went off, and we just looked at each other, and I darted up to the bridge to go and see what was happening. And thankfully, it was a false alarm. But like everybody on the ship, all the crew and everything, because they didn't make the announcement for like another 5 minutes or something, but it was a mistake. I think everyone was panicking at that point.
We had moments as well. If the ship was going back and forth really rocky, it was horrible, but I found that okay. I found listing really scary. So that's when
you're like that.
It just stays one way. So you're just like that. And I used to find that really unnerving because I just want it to go back and forth rather than just stay.
More often than not, we had relatively calm seas, I would say.
We had a few.
There were like a few occasions where it was particularly like this. One of the times was when your parents came on board.
Yeah, my parents and
This was the worst one that we went through, actually, because we were walking through the shops and all the drawers and stuff were like opening. The main job, though, during those situations for myself was to try and just make sure everybody, keep people calm. And
the captain normally comes out and walks around when it's bad as well to sort of talk to people.
I'd try and make light of it. I'd be hosting a game show or trivia or something, and I remember so if it's listed like that, you do have this feeling of like you're going to run.
Yeah.
Because it's like quite steep. And I remember hosting it and like trying to run on, but then not being able to stop in the centre of the stage and then having to come back. It was like trying to make light of it.
And people used to ask, like, is it really hard to dance when it's rocky?
Oh.
And I'd say yes, but the hardest thing was standing still and singing.
Yeah.
Because when you're dancing, you're moving with the ship. So, like, it is difficult, but you can hide it a bit better. When you're just standing still or having to do, like, a slow dance or something, that is the hardest because there's no way of making it look graceful because you're always just, like, falling over the place.
That's another point of when you decide to go and work on a ship. is you've got no idea how you're going to react to actually being on a ship at sea.
Yeah.
So that's another factor of whether you're going to enjoy it or not.
Yeah, some people found out they had seasickness a couple of weeks in.
Yeah.
What was they said? Apples, ginger beer. You can get the
people used to wear those wristbands.
And then I think you can take medication as well if it's really bad. Right, last question. What was the best cruise and conversely the worst cruise you both worked on?
So I think we might have changed it slightly because we've only worked on 2 ships. So, and that, like, I don't say one wasn't.
They weren't vastly
I think I
different.
much preferred the Discovery because it was a newer ship.
Yeah, I preferred the Discovery. That was an ex-Royal Caribbean ship and it was really, I loved it. I loved the actual ship.
I always had love for the Thompson Dream because it was the one that I spent a lot of time on.
And I actually really loved the theatre in the Thompson Dream.
Oh yeah,
it was a really lovely theatre.
And that's really weird because it got scrapped, didn't it?
Yeah, it's
and
gone.
then I saw pictures of it being dismantled and stuff like that. It's so bizarre. But so yeah, we'll slightly change this into maybe kind of an itinerary sort of things.
Yeah.
I'll go with worst first because this was a time where I actually can't remember where we went, but it was the first time that they decided to do a themed cruise, and they did an 80s themed cruise, and I only think it was for like 4 days, and so it was essentially a booze cruise. So it'd been sold as like, unlimited drinks, all this sort of stuff. They brought on some different acts, so a lot of the entertainment was taken away from us and given to like outside companies and stuff. So there was, who was the DJ that came on? Sarah Cox, I think, came on. There was some tribute acts. There was a Mr. T tribute artist.
I wasn't on this
came
cruise,
on.
but
He did bingo, which was amazing. But yeah, there's like Boy George tribute, Madonna tribute, stuff like that. And so it was really weird from our perspective because everything was taken away and it wasn't people coming on board that were there for our entertainment. And so in the way of like, because socializing was one of our biggest things, I would try and talk to people. They just didn't want to know. And on that occasion, unfortunately, like there's a lot of them got quite aggressive towards you. And so there was a decision made on the first day that we were really going to step back. And for the 4 days, we didn't really do a lot of the socializing or anything like that. All we did was maybe introduce some of the acts, but we were always like a disembodied voice, never really like in front of the people. And so it was really weird because I was there and I couldn't do the job that I was there to do. And
I think it was alcohol fueled.
Yeah,
so.
The atmosphere was very, I think they learned a lot from doing this first one because I think subsequently they did some more. But that first, it was just so different, and you would hear all these announcements for like the security to come along and sort stuff out.
Lots
it was
of fights.
so bizarre.
That wasn't what they were all like.
No, they weren't. No, like most of the time they were lovely,
really
and you'd really get along with a lot of people, and a lot of people were very open to chatting and socializing.
Yeah. I'd say some of the best places I'll sort of do. I'll never forget going to Havana. That was such an experience.
Havana, ooh, nana.
Barbados.
Yes.
Loved that cruise. I really liked the Greece itinerary. So we did like Corfu, Santorini, a lot of places in Greece.
Part of me is really sad that we didn't vlog the sort of earlier places and stuff because I've forgotten because we haven't really gone back to like the Caribbean.
Yeah, we'll have to look through this.
So yeah.
Yeah, we did visit some absolutely beautiful places. Oh, Costa Rica. That was a massive one for me because we went to the sloth sanctuary and, I'm obsessed with sloths. So that was really, really special. Jamaica and we went river tubing.
Yeah.
Caribbean.
So
we did a lot of the Caribbean. So we spent Christmas Day somewhere here in the Caribbean. So like the experiences we had, Mexico, we swam with dolphins, the experiences we had were, we'll never forget.
And I don't know whether it's recency bias or say recency because it was, 2018, but one of my favourite cruises was the one where Helena came on as a guest. And we did like Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah, we did the Baltics, and
Yeah.
that was really, really
That
great
was
cruise.
one of my favorite itineraries, I think.
And leading on from that, we do have vlogs. So what I'll do is I'll put them in the description box. We have the vlogs where I visited Martyn.
Yeah.
And then we also have vlogs from when we worked on the Morella Discovery. So if you haven't watched them and you fancy having a watch, I'll pop them in the description box. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. It's kind of like a little podcast, isn't it?
I know, yeah. I don't know how long we've been talking for.
Yeah. But yeah, like our DMs are always open as well. Like if you are thinking about working on a ship and you want to know like a little bit more, obviously probably a lot has changed. But yeah, exciting if you are thinking about working on board.
We were extremely fortunate. I will say towards the end, things fell apart a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, we would never take it away.
No.
You know,
I never regret it.
We saw some incredible places. We gained skills, able to perform in front of a lot of people. You know, there were so many positives to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that is everything, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah, if you like this one, hit the like button and also subscribe.
Bye.
Toodle Pipski.
I'll be alive.